Okay. And just getting everything ready for the show tonight. And bingo. Yay. It's a little late, just a couple minutes late. I was waiting on some of the programs to start up because they were taking a bit longer than normal. But welcome. Yay. Interesting. This is... Nope. Okay. If you're watching me on YouTube's replay, thank you for watching. You know, the whole like, subscribe, bell icon, the whole thing. I'm this close to 200 subscribers. Just 200, that's not a lot, but hey, it's fun. What I'm going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be making tokens. Yes, tokens, not a miniature sculpt tonight. What's going to happen is I'm going to be making tokens for conditions. And I'm going to get into the whole schlemiel as soon as I get the, you know, some more people in here to actually watch me do this. On the other hand, you say hello to Shinju. Yes, this is baby girl. And thank you, Anycubic. Yes, they sponsor my show. So please, Anycubic Votan, easy mode for miniature printing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, while we're waiting on people to show up, I'm going to explain exactly what I'm going to be doing. And what that is I'm going to make a little disk, a basic geometry disk token, and I'm going to then create alphas in Photoshop and use those alphas to apply images to the front of these tokens that will represent what they are. Now, of course, you can either print or paint them different colors to, you know, further emphasize what they are, but there's 14 of them. 14 different conditions in 5th ed alone. That's not even counting conditions from other games or from Pathfinder or earlier editions of D&D. Now, admittedly, some of them cross over. I mean, you know, when you think about it, prone is prone. And it's rather prone to me having made jokes about it. Okay. Now let me go ahead and copy this link, copy. And then make sure I let people know that I'm on. And we're still kind of... Aha, I have peoples. Hello, Kim. Now, like I said, we're going to go ahead and do the tokens tonight. And 14 different conditions out. Stupid book. Side note, this is a first printing. Has anyone else seen a first printing that did not crack the binding? Apparently, I've got one of the very few ever made of the first printing that hasn't fallen apart yet, despite, you know, several years of constant use. I mean, I got it when it came out, and that's... Yeah, it's been over 4 years of constant use every Wednesday and most Saturdays, and you know, you can see it some of the wearing down here, but it's not cracking the binding. If you want to look at the list of conditions, they're on page 290. Well, 290 through 292. Anyway, I'm going to do first, I'm going to use this as an excuse to show at least 3 different ways that alphas work. But before I can do that, I have to go ahead and, bring it into 3D Studio Max so I can make the actual base token. So, now this is one of the standard bases, the flat base. I have it here mostly for, make sure I'm getting this the right scale. Each one of these squares is 10 millimeter by 10 millimeter. If we zoom in real close, we don't get any better grid. Oh well. Now what I want to do is I want to make a token that's large enough that you can easily read what's, what the symbol is, but not so large that it's like, almost as big as the base. Some people prefer the little rings you put around the base. I have 3 problems with that. Number 1, not all miniature bases are the same size. Number 2, some of us actually, actually paint the rims of our bases. I even used to put character names on the base. And 3, what happens if you have more than one condition at the same time? Imagine the character who is unconscious, it was invisible, paralyzed, and poisoned all at the same time. I pity that poor character, but it's possible. It is more than possible to have multiple conditions, and if you demonstrate the conditions by a ring around the base, well, that's only one at a time. That's a valid use. I'm just thinking with tokens, you can lay them on the, lay them on the base or lean them against the base if you need to, or even like if he's up like this, balance the token right here. It's also easier to demonstrate what I'm getting ready to demonstrate. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a cylinder, and it's only going to have one height segment, 2 cap segments because we want it to actually have triangles there, not a single 12-sided thing, and sides 12. Now I'm going to draw here because that's the center, and I figure about that big should be pretty good, and it's going to be about that high. And now, since I have the base frozen, I can just hide frozen objects. There we go. Now the diameter we have, radius, let's make it a full 7.5 millimeter. That way the interior surface area here is going to be 15 millimeters across. And we need to make its X 0 and its Y 0. That's just for my personal thingy. Now we're going to make it an edible poly. We're going to select the entire rim. We're going to extrude it. We're going to set this to local normal and shrink until it's only about 2 millimeters. So additional 2 millimeters. This is to give us a little bit of a rim. We're going to select that and select by ring, and change the, and by control clicking on polygon, bang, it's now those polygons are selected. We're now going to extrude 1 millimeter. Okay, we look at it and you can see it's a disc with a little ring around it. Yay! And just in case, first select and loop. This is the outermost edge loop. As I just, come on, cut that out. Thank you. This loop doesn't need to be there. Control backspace. And let's go ahead and hit smooth. Smoothing groups 1. This gets rid of all of the smoothing groups. And it'll help us see better. That we have succeeded in what we're about to do, which is select those loops or those edges and edge loop. Now when we chamfer 0.001, and let's go ahead and make it, 2 should be good. Now when we hit mesh smooth, and bring it from 1 to 2 levels, we have our nice smooth ridged disc shape that we're going to be using for these tokens. Now let's go ahead and we're going to export this. So wait for it to load. Export selected. And we're going to put this under 3D printing, yes, meshes. We're going to put it in the bases. I'm going to create a new one called tokens. Now we need to make this OBJ format, because that's what ZBrush reads best. Export. Done. And we're going to switch over to ZBrush while we close 3ds Max. No, I don't want to save changes. I don't need to do anything now. Now everything else we're going to do is going to be either in here or Photoshop. So we go ahead and we go to 3D Printing Home, Meshes, Pre-Sculpt Minis, Bases, Tokens, and Blank Condition Token. And then we draw it onto the page, click Edit, and here's our token. Now it's it's also got circular polygons, so we're going to get rid of that. .512. Okay. And then we're going to hit divide one more time. 2.2 million active points. Save as. Blank condition token. Okay. Now, we have our blank condition token. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to make the alphas. Okay? That's something else that can be done. Alright, now here is Photoshop. This is Photoshop CS3 Extended. Yes, it's about 10 years old, but it still works. Don't judge me. And we're going to hit Control N, a new 512 by 512 image. So I'm going to bring it over. I bring it over to this side mostly because that's where I'm used to working on things. Fit on screen and zoom out. That gives us room. If we wanted to select something in a corner, we can just draw from outside the canvas. Now the first thing I'm going to do is Control Shift F5. And this is fill. I'm pretty sure that's the standard key, because we want it to be black. We then open up a new layer and switch to white. Almost everything I do here can be done in GIMP or any of the other free image editing programs. I'm not going to pull up something like, I don't know, Filter Forge. In fact, most of it's going to be just straight up drawing. The exception is I might use a good bit of this, which is the gradient tool. Now, the very first condition in the book is blinded. So what I'm going to do for that, I'm going to do a couple cartoon eyes with swirls in them. Just get out my tablet, and I forgot to plug it in again. Yeah, that's what happens when I transfer files to my thumb drive. Alright, so make sure that it's reading. Yep, it sure is. Or not. Okay, here we go. Now, what I'm going to do is just simply Control A to select it all, hit delete. I need more of a now with an alpha, white is where the brush does things. Black is where it doesn't. Okay. Actually, no, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to draw one. Whoop. And I'm realizing this is going to be too detailed for most FDM printers. Alright, so blinded. Just make it one big eye. And let's yeah, let's just put this right here. Go back to the eraser and draw across. There we go. And just kind of clean that up a little bit. And let's go ahead and add on. Just a little bit feeling. Now, this isn't centered in the picture, so Control All, Control X, Control V. That'll center it. Now, the one thing is, we need to make certain that we have a pretty reasonable amount of space around this little emblem that we drew. We also want to make it a little bit thicker lines, just because, you know, make it easier. So I went ahead and I double-clicked, and I went to Styles. I now go to Stroke, and I change the color to white. And let's play around with the size until it gets, you know, the thicker the better, until it's unrecognizable. That's probably about as good as we want. Now, I'm going to add another layer underneath it and collapse it onto there. And we have our first alpha. Just to make it easier on the render, we're going to go ahead, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Give it more, by blurring it, we're giving grayscale into it. Black is the tool does nothing, or the brush does nothing. White is it does it 100%. Levels of gray do anywhere in between. So by blurring it, it's going to have a slant, which will make it easier on the printing and easier on the and getting rid of any jagged edges, or like anti-aliasing in a video game. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to save it as a bitmap, BMP. And right now I've got that in alpha, so we're going to go back to bases, tokens. We're going to call this blinded alpha. Okay, now we go back to ZBrush. I peek at the chat. Hey! And now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do what's called drag rectangle. I go to the alpha and I import blinded alpha. Now I'm going to try and click as close to the center as I can, and I drag. Now you'll notice, while it looks okay, number one, it's fading towards the edges here, and number two, it's not coming out very far. I can Control Z. Well, not coming out very far, a lot of it can be cured by doing that and turning off lazy mouse. The blurred at the edges is focal shift. I bring focal shift to -100, and now it's pretty even, but it's still not deep enough. So we're going to increase the intensity. Let's say 70. Once again, I'm going to try and click near the center and drag up. Not that far. Down about here. Okay. And oops, that's too far. So 25's not enough. 70's too far, so 45. And yeah, that's a... Oh, see that right there? We don't want that. So what we got to do, we double click the divider, auto masking, backface mask, and then close it again. Now when we do it, and bring in our eyeball and brow to represent being blinded, the back stays flat. We zoom it out, and I think it looks too much like a teacup. So we're going to solve that by going to Layer. Notice that it has a different alpha. When the minute I change to Layer, I'm going to change it to Drag Dot, turn off Lazy Mouse, Z Subtract, and about 70. Nope. And if we smooth it, it's not big enough. It's deep enough, but not big enough. So, actually, let's make it a little bit deeper and a good bit bigger. Too big. There we go. A little bit of smoothing just to... Okay. That is our blinded token. And as we often do, we're going to Decimation Master. We're going to make this 20k polys. We're going to make it the minimum possible. Bing. And we were watching that orange bar go. Go bar, go bar, go bar, go. Whee! Yes, I am Goofy. Got something against Goofy?
Well, of course. I wouldn't care if anybody had anything against me. I'm just a nice guy.
Yes, Goofy is a nice guy. Although whoever had the brilliant idea that Donald Duck was a healer in Kingdom Hearts needs his head examined. He's a berserker. Goofy would be the healer.
'Cause I just make people feel good.
And we went from 2.2 million polys to 30,999 polys, and you cannot tell. We're gonna export this as blinded token. Okay. Now, just for the sake of making it easier for the next token, we're just going to load it in the old Z tool. Well, the next condition is charmed. Okay, so we're going to hide this layer and make a new layer above it. And what we're going to do with this one is we're going to make a heart. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to make the mouse a good bit bigger. I'm now going over here to Edit, Preferences, Guides, Grids, and Slices, and blah, 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 blah. Grid line every 256 pixels with 4 subdivisions. Okay. View, Show, Grid. Now what we're going to do is we want this brush to be 190 pixels, let's say. And now we are going to we'll put on the caps lock, and we get a crosshair cursor. I'm going to put one here and here. No, those are too big. So I'm going to go ahead and Control-Alt-Delete. 190, let's make that 170. And once again, we're going to click here. We're going to click here. Okay. Now, we're going to turn off the grid. And then we're going to go down to a 9. And we're going to turn that back on. We're going to make sure we are inside. Come down to here. There we go. Then 19, just to kind of start filling this in and cutting out corners mostly. This wand is a magic wand. We're going to select in here. We're then going to select, modify, expand about, let's say 5 pixels. And Control-Shift F5, and it fills. Now we have a heart, but I want to kind of exaggerate the heart just a little bit, so we're going to go for a 5 pixel soft brush. Click, shift, down. Now, I'm going to go up 1 level. I'm going to select it. Control-Shift-I to invert. Select, modify, expand. Let's expand it 64 pixels. No, that's too much. So select, modify, expand, 32 pixels. Okay, there we go. We're going to hide this for a second, and we're going to fill this with white. Oh, Control-Shift-I again, forgot. Shift F5, fill it with white. Now we're going to blur it. Filter, blur, blur, 32 pixels. And we're going to duplicate layer one time. And just in case, we're going to select around the original and delete. This keeps a heart shape while giving us some bulbous bits. What do you want, baby girl? It's a Shinju. Yes. Come on. Good girl. Yes, you saw that right. She responds to snap commands. Anyway, this is our heart. So we're going to... Actually, let's go ahead. I'm going to duplicate the bottom, the background layer. And I'm going to use Control E to collapse it. Then Control Shift L to auto level to make sure that the peaks are still white. Now, Control Shift Save. Bitmap. Charmed Alpha. Now the way this has worked, as before, the black, nothing happens. The white, it stays, 100% usage. The grays, as it goes less. Now, a good idea where to start. Also, because, and it's going to come up across with the orange bar. Now, the book has 14 conditions. And as pointed out by Kim, there's any number of spells that can be used as well. Like a hunter's mark, you might do, computing please wait. Oh, nonsense. I hate that. Hate it when it does that. Let's go ahead and... Let's try it again. Let's turn it to the side a little. Little tweaks like that make it sometimes work. Anyway, there's spells like Hunter's Mark, where you might have a picture of a little crosshairs. Spells like Gaius, or Geus, or Geese. Any number of pronunciations for that one. Just random page. Tongues. Spell grants the creature you touch the ability to understand any spoken language it hears. You get the picture. Things like that. Any number of spells that can have their own little token. And if you really want to do it, you can make your own tokens using the techniques I'm doing. And like I said, whatever I do in Photoshop, you could do in GIMP or any of the other free image editing software out there. There, see? I just changed the position and rubbed the back a little bit for good luck with the smooth tool, and it worked this time. Doesn't look like it's any different, but it's actually now down to 40,000 triangles and 20,000 points. So, export. Charmed token. And then we load tool, blank condition token. Okay. So y'all pretty much missed everything I just said. If I go to settings, quality, I change it from auto to 480. That's what you might want to do, Todd. Like what you just saw. Whee. Okay. The next token, according to the book, after Charmed, is Deafened. Okay. I'm going to take the mouse, make a new layer. I'm going to make the brush a little bit thicker. This is going to be a bit more cartoony. And very simply, I'm going to sit here and draw. So what do you think? Does that fit Deafened? Todd, you might want to go to down and below with the gear and go to quality and change it from auto to 480p. Anyway, we're going to give it a little bit of a blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Not that much, we're going to have like a 6. Just enough to anti-alias. Control save. Bump map. Deafened alpha. Go back into ZBrush. Change the alpha. Import. Deafened alpha. And we're going back to drag rectangle. And drag up until it's filling most of the space. The only thing I'm concerned with here is it might, I'm going to go ahead and smooth over it. It might have problems with FDM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select every part of this that has drawing on it. And deselect, shrink the mouse and deselect the back, or the edge. Then I'm going to masking. Actually, Control Alt click inverts it. There we go. I don't have to do that. And I'm going to deformation, polish, and it's going to take a few seconds, but this should kind of smooth it out and make it a little bit thicker near the base for people with like FDM. No. Forget that. I'm going to redraw it. That was just way too thin. What I'm going to do this time, I'm going to keep the general concept, but I'm going to do it like so. And just kind of select all of that and erase all this black. Well, not so much erase all the black as add in all this white. Let's make it a bit bigger for this. Now to make this look like an ear, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to flip here so that our black is in front. We're going to go down to a 13. No, let's make it 19. And we're going to draw the interior bits of the ear. Again, making it kind of cartoony. And then we're going to blur it. Okay. Control Shift Save. Bitmap. We're going to call this Deafened Alpha 2. See, sometimes it doesn't always work on your first go round. Now we load in Deafened Alpha 2. And we click and drag. And it's going off the edge. We don't want that. It was not centered. And then I'm going to shrink the mouse. And I'm going to smooth out this area here. As you can see, just alphas isn't really enough. So we're going to switch to slash. There it is. I'm going to drag it around here. And here. And then smooth it. Now I'm going to smooth over this one right to here, and then I'm just going to hit 1 repeatedly. Now I'm going to smooth it again. Cat. And what we have is our ear. Little sound waves coming from it, and then an X. And once again, 20K. Oh wow, it's taken me this long just to do 3 of them? So we can look ahead while this is going on. Next up is Frightened. How would you guys handle a little token, 15 millimeters, so not quite the size of a miniature base, with a drawing on it to represent Frightened? And we went from 2.2 megapixels to, or mega polygons to 38,000. Export. Deafened token. Now we're going to load tool, blank condition token. How would you guys handle Frightened? Van Gogh Scream. Okay. I'm gonna... So, this is going to be similar. what we're going to do is we're going to just draw on a basic, oh yeah, flip it so that we're drawing white. And we're going to draw on just a basic shape. And then okay, now just for the sake of it, we're going to erase these two little peaks here. Now, with the magic wand, we're going to select in here. There we go. Select, modify, expand, 4. And then Shift F5 fills it with white. Well, I think I want to make these black parts a little bit bigger. So we're going to select them. I'm going to hold down Shift to select all of them together. Select, modify, expand. 4 sounds good. Delete. And let's do it again. Now the next thing I'm going to do, just to emphasize the emotion, I'm going to just simply use the eraser, 19 millimeters, or 19 pixels. There we go. Now the problem is this is too big. So first thing we're going to do, Control Alt X V. That's to center it. Now we're going to edit, transform, scale. I'm going to click this little chain here so that as I change the scale on the width, it changes in the height as well. Let's make it 80%. This gives us plenty of room around the outside. Now, filter Gaussian blur, and Control Shift save, bump map, frightened token. Now, coming back in here, once again, we go back to our standard brush, import frightened token. Kind of click in the middle and pull up. Oh, too far. There we go. Now you'll notice that the space here in between the eyes and in between the things dipped in a bit. So what we're going to do, we're just going to come in here, and with the regular standard, we're going to turn off the alpha, go back to drag dots, and shrink it until we're about there. And now I'm going to very lightly, a lower intensity from 45, we're going to drop to 18. Just kind of pull this. Oh yeah, and focal shift back to 0. And now we're going to smooth it out. And that didn't work. Okay, I'm going to use Move Tool. I'm going to make this about the size I need. Not layer, move. I added a whole bunch of brushes today, so they don't really all click. And we're going to grab here and, oh no, grab here and pull out. And basically fix the area there. Fix this. Grab here, pull out. Then make sure I'm on that part and drag it out, drag here, drag here. I'm going to smooth it a bit. And then we're going to inflate them. There's inflate. I got to get used. When I get the chance, I've got to get used to where the new locations are. And while I'm thinking about it, we need to kind of move this back that way. Frame. How does that look? Okay. So now, once again, we go back up here and we hit 20K. And get soda because throat gets dry when talking a lot. Take out old soda and get new soda. This is a very important part of the entire tutorial. Must have liquid. And it's at 33% or thereabouts. So next up after frightened is grappled. Now that one's going to be tricky. Oh, kitty kisses. Yeah, it's a little bit. Girl. The first thought was something like that. But of course from this side. And we have 40,000 polygons. Export. Frightened token. Now, like I said in the intro that most people weren't here for, you can either, once you printed these out, you can always just like paint them or just print them out in different colors to begin with. And all sorts of things like that. Grappling hook, when you make it thick enough to really be visible in printing, it starts looking more like a tree. So, let's hide that. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with, actually, let's just go ahead and make a stand-in arm. And once again, we're going to select in between, select, modify, expand, 4 is good, Shift F5. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go above that, but first we're going to take this, we're going to lock it, we're going to fill it with 50% gray instead of 100%, which is white. Then we're going to go to Burn Tool, Midtones, and change this to, let's say 200, yeah. And I'm just going to very carefully do that. Then I'm going to make it smaller and increase the exposure a bit. Then I'm going to make it even smaller and make it 100%. And this, and this is to try and round it off. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, blur. There we go. Now I'm going to hit Control L. This is our levels. This shows us, okay, the darkest part is right here, the brightest part is up here. Let's bring the brightness to there. Okay, now up above, I'm going to hit just the letter D, and it's going to take us back to our standard black front, white back. And using white, I'm going to draw, actually not using white, using 75% gray. I'm going to just draw on the fingers. I'm then going to go up another layer and using white, draw on the thumb. I'm then going to take the blur tool and blur it quite a bit. And then the burn tool, bring that back up to about 300 and exposure down quite a bit, just to kind of range highlights. Now I'm going to hit, let's blur this first. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, 7. And then blur this again. This way they don't blur onto each other. Control E. And I'm going to move it just to get it more. Yeah. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and get what I think is the darkest part of this. Not these last couple rows, because that's anti-aliasing, but right about here. Fit on screen. I'm then going to make a layer below it. I'm going to check it. It's at 14%. I'm going to make a 10% gray. And then just to make sure that it shows up as a hand. Then I'm going to bring this to 50% gray. And I'm going to basically sit here. Oh, I need it at about 100. No, I think I'm going to go ahead and let's use instead the dodge tool. No, 100, yeah. Up here, I'm going to kind of okay. Now, actually, let's bring this a little bit, let's stretch it a little bit and rotate it. There. Now, apply. Control E, E. Control A. The E was to collapse one layer to the one right below it. Control A, Control X to delete, Control V to paste. That way it's centered. And file. Save as. BMP. Grappled Alpha. And we go back to our standard. We bring that focal shift up. We bring it back to 45. And we change it back to a drag rectangle. And we load grappled. Now when we do this one, we've got our basic shape there, but you know, it doesn't quite work right. First, let's go ahead and very gently smooth out the areas that are kind of giving us that layer line look. But again, that's because it doesn't keep enough info. I'm then going to go to the orb crack brush. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Turn off lazy mouse and because we want to emphasize the hand more than anything else. No. And I broke my own rule about drawing segments so that if you screw up, you can only delete part of your work instead of all of it. Okay. Now, once again, frame, zoom out a little. We're going to decimate. Yay! Decimate 20K. As we hit 907. And we hit computing, please wait. Shift and smooth the back a little bit. Change the angle. And try it again. Yeah, it's that finicky. Computing, please wait. I hate that! Any ideas for computing, please wait? Yeah. Incapacitated is computing, please wait. Try it again. Anu te su domine.
Waboosh. Lord, I hate this requiem.
Now what I'm going to do Thursday, I'm going to sculpt the base for my Cyclops, for Polyphemus. There's going to be two bases. One is going to be an incredibly simple cracked earth base. Or kind of, no, let's make it rocky base. Now this is for a size huge creature now. And yeah, just running a smooth brush on the back and turning it, and now it's working. Go figure. But yeah, one of them is going to be a very simple rocky base. The other is going to be a bit more decorated, a bit more dynamic. Excuse me. And guess what? Yay, there it goes from 2.238 million polygons to 39,996 polygons. Export. Grappled token. Hiccups. Load tool. Blank condition token. That would be stunned, Robert. See, here's the conditions. Blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, grappled, incapacitated, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, restrained, stunned, and unconscious. Oh, and exhaustion, but there's 6 levels of exhaustion. We're number 6. Yeah. It simply says an incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions. Okay. So yeah, stunned would be like just a little smiley face with like a little birdie tweeting around it. Incapacitated. Let's say chains. Okay. Now with chains, we're going to do something different. We're just going to go ahead with the standard brush. No alpha. Dots. And the focal shift to 0. We're going to draw on a couple. Actually, no. Needs to be nearly touching. And then just draw on the chain. No. Gonna need bigger for this size brush. And here we're gonna, there we go. Yeah. There we go. A chain and an X. No. Need to do it. Let's do it this way. Okay. Now what we're going to do, we're going down to masking, and we're going to shrink the mask a bit. And then deformation, inflate. Oh, I forget. Control Alt Tab into the space. There. Now we inflate. So it's about there. We're then going to blur the mask a little bit. And then inflate again. Incapacitated. Okay. So now let's decimate to 20. After incapacitated comes invisible. I'm just going to make them footprints for invisible. Huh. And this one decimates with no problem. Go figure! Ow, I think I rolled so hard I hurt something. And there we go. 2.238 million polygons, or 239 million polygons, to 39,996. Yes, that's quite a lot. Export incap token and load tool blank. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the standard brush. I'm going to make and then smooth it out. I keep forgetting I gotta use the mouse, not the tablet for this. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. And then another one. No. Okay. There's our footprints. And now I'm gonna polish it. That's under deformation. Polish 50. Okay. Now, decimate 20. Bing! After invisible comes paralyzed. That's going to be a tough one. Of course, for those of you who have a resin printer, a good option would be, for invisibility, simply print out a second copy in clear resin. Kind of work on FDM, but it doesn't look so much clear as, you know, fuzzy. Like an extremely, like an occlusion inside a crystal. And that one did perfectly. Go figure. Writing file to disk, yeah, I know. Okay, there we go. Export invisibility token. I'm gonna skip paralyzed. That one's just too After paralyzed comes petrified. I know what I'll do for that one. I'm going to clay buildup. Make sure to turn on backface mask. And I'm just going to start with a rock shape. Now, clay buildup gives us a bit of a shaping to it as we add to it. And we just kind of and then we're going to smooth over this area just a bit. A little bit here just to kind of fill in the gaps. Then we're going to slash tool, add, lower the intensity quite a lot, turn off lazy mouse, make it a bit bigger, and kind of draw . Just kind of just add in some rocky areas. Then I'm going to smooth out this whole area here. So that's a bit too high. That's good enough. Then I'm going back to clay buildup. I'm going to just very lightly go over it to kind of give it a bit more of a rocky, raggedy surface. And then kind of add in a couple smaller rocks. And then up here, once again, I'm going to add in a couple smaller rocks. A little bit bigger than the others. There we go. That's petrified. A bunch of rocks. Yay. After petrified comes poisoned. Maybe some bubbling droplets. Or just skull and crossbones. No, skull and crossbones has connotations of death in general. A bottle with skull and crossbones on it. How about that? Computing, please wait. Escape. Smooth on the back just for luck. And a different angle. Yes, it was missing a toe. He's been an adventurer for a while. Even after he took arrows to the feet. It's the knee that gets you. By the way, it is that an arrow to the knee is a reference to getting married. That was made up by people who wanted to sound cool after Skyrim came up. After Skyrim was released, the whole everyone made the meme about an arrow to the knee, and then someone said, "Well, actually, in the Old Norse, that was a euphemism for getting married." No, it wasn't. No. The phrase meant nothing more than having a pointed piece of wood in your kneecap until these, It just referenced how it was difficult to recover from a severe injury in the Middle Ages in a primitive culture. Even with the magic healing and the healing potions and the healing this and the healing that and wait a minute, yeah. Okay. And once again, export petrified token. And we're going to load a tool, blank slate, and we're going back down to here. Hide. Now, this one's going to be a bit simpler. I'm going to turn the grid back on, but I'm going to increase the number of slices from 4 to 8 subdivisions. Okay, now we got a new thingy here, going from here we want it a bit bigger. Let's make it. Okay, we're going to start off. Hit caps lock so that we have. Okay, now from here down to there, from here down to there, and from here all the way down to here. And then from here back up to here, and then from here to here. And I select inside, select, modify, expand, or Shift F5. Alright, let's make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Apply, and let's turn off the grid. Now we're going to go above it, and we're going to make a skull. Now we're not going to make entirety of a skull. We're going to make a half skull, because we're going to mirror it. It's just another little trick. We're going to start off here with eye socket. No. And then come around and make the bulbous part of the head. Now what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it. Duplicate layer, edit, transform, flip horizontal. And then I hit this and I use Control or Shift side arrow and then hit Control E. We now have a nice symmetrical head, and we can go about making it unsymmetrical here. Now we switch colors and we change the mouse to 9. And we're going to just draw in where the nose would be. Okay, now Control Alt, Control X, Control V. It's too high, so we're going to drop it a couple. There. That is our symbol for being poisoned. So Control Shift Save. BMP. Poisoned Alpha. Back over here. Back to the standard brush. Back to drag rectangle. Back to an alpha. Import poisoned. Local shift back to over here, back to 100 or negative 100. Turn it aside just a little so you can. Okay, now let's make the mouse just a little bit bigger and smooth it lightly to give us more of an angle. Okay. Now let's smooth out the back for luck. Frame it. Turn and subdivide for 20. After that comes prone. That's going to be a difficult one to do. Really and truly, most of the rest of these will be things like various forms of stick figure or smiley face. Like stunned, unconscious. And it went to computing, please wait. Yay! Hit escape. Excuse me. Once again. Yes, I'm drinking plenty of caffeine, but I got woken up early this morning. I wonder. Oh. Looks like it's gonna work this time. Yay! Yay, it worked this time. It is 9:37. This is actually going to be the last one I'm going to do for now. After it's done, I'm going to export it as poison token. Save. I'm going to come back to here. Yay. Now, you've seen how I make the alphas. You've seen how I draw them on the figure. Are there any questions about alphas left? How to make them, There's another way to make alphas that I really don't have the time or ability to demonstrate. It's what's called a Z-depth alpha. You take a modeled object, like let's say one of my figures, you load it into a renderer, and instead of rendering the color as it goes across, it renders the distance from the object to the camera, so that the things that are closest to the camera, like my hand right now, would be almost white, my face would be gray, and the back wall would be black, which corresponds perfectly to the grayscale used and in alpha. But the way to do that is different in almost every single program. Some you have to create a special camera for. Some you have to go in and just flick a single tick box in the rendering engine. Another you do it with the material on the item. Yes, ain't it grand? So, any alpha questions? And yes, you can download a boatload of them on the internet. And just because it's a, cracked earth alpha, doesn't mean you can't use it for certain areas of scales on the back of your Dragonborn. If it's, I use a random noise for the tips of hair for things like the top of a mohawk, or really, really curly hair, or in one case, I don't know if you people have seen the following. This is the female Draugr, or undead female caster I did for the Lost Dragons. And on her shoulder, let me bring this back down now that you've seen it. On those shoulders, I used that noise alpha to create what looks like poofy sheepskin or the like. I also used, for those who watched me do it, I used a scale alpha to make the scale mail on the dwarf I sculpted the other day. The only limitation on making an alpha is just to remember that white is closest, or white sticks out more, or goes in deeper. White is basically your, the tool does full effect. Black, the tool does nothing. In between, it does it at about half strength, or however much by the shade of gray. I also use an alpha for making chainmail. I could use what's called an insert mesh, but that leaves gaps underneath that I don't like. From the point of view of 3D printing, it's bad to have all those tiny little gaps. I mean, what if you wanted to cast it? Even if it came out perfectly, when you put it in the mold residue, it would hook behind all of those links and yank out. Anyway, like I said, I'm just beat all to heck and gone. For those who don't know, about a week and a half ago, I got T-boned. My first wreck ever as a driver, as long as I've been driving. They were stopped at a little side street going onto a moderately larger street. I was going this way. Bam. And then kept going. I had a very minor damage to my passenger rear wheel well. They left their entire bumper assembly behind at the scene. Hit and run uninsured motorist, isn't that grand? Anyway, I'm going to be going ahead and I'm going to hold up my hand. Count down. When I reach to 1, you go bye-bye. Alrighty? Everyone all set for saying goodnight? Say goodnight, everybody. That's going to be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. Don't get T-boned. It's not fun.